Can we admit that for Republicans, this is definitely political? We want the tapes so we can find out if there's something embarrassing for the president on there that can then be used against him over the next 5 months. Can we admit that? Right. But Congressman, you would agree that it's political just in the sense that this is going to benefit Republicans. But let's say there's something embarrassing. You're going to make that public, right?
Well, absolutely.
House Republicans' latest attempt to politically wound President Biden is so transparently obvious and cynical that even Newsmax is calling them out for it to their faces on live TV. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at in this video. It's always fun to see schisms between right-wing media and the Republican Party, despite their shared mutual goals. Like when it comes to impeaching President Biden, Newsmax, the Fox Propaganda Network, OAN, Tim Pool, the Daily Wire, all these people are aligned with the Republican Party and wanting these goals to be actualized. But where the schisms occur is that House Republicans are so uniquely incompetent and ineffective that right-wing media will occasionally, and with increasing frequency over the past year, get publicly fed up with it, okay? And it's funny when the Fox Propaganda Network does it, but it's even better when Newsmax does it because Newsmax is generally more unhinged and further right than Fox. Like, do you know how bad you have to suck for Newsmax to publicly call you out for it? Before I play this clip, I just want to establish what's going on here, and we'll dive more into the specifics, but House Republicans are trying to subpoena the audio files of the conversations between Special Counsel Robert Hur and President Biden, even though they have the full transcript. They want the audio files. They're trying to say it's for legitimate legislative purpose and, oversight responsibility. But even Rob Finnerty of Newsmax is like, nah, you guys just want to politically hurt Biden. Let's just come out and say it.
Can we admit that for Republicans, this is definitely political? We want the tapes so we can find out if there's something embarrassing for the president on there that can then be used against him over the next 5 months. Can we admit that?
No, I don't think. Look, there's a political aspect to it, but it's more than that. If you have the person who is supposed to be the leader of the free world who cannot actually form cognitive thought and he gets lost, that's a danger to the country and the entire world. That's not just a political statement. What that is a policy statement. Who's actually running the country? That leads us to ask, is this an oligarchical type of government right now? Or is it the constitutional republic it's intended to be?
Right, but Congressman, you would agree that it's political just in the sense that this is going to benefit Republicans. And let's say you get this 3+ hours of audio recordings and there's something really embarrassing that Merrick Garland and his team cleaned up, although Merrick Garland yesterday said he hasn't even listened to the tapes. Your colleague, Scott Fitzgerald, asked him about that, and I was stunned that he hadn't even listened to them himself. But let's say there's something embarrassing. You're going to make that public, right?
Well, absolutely. So in the sense that there's everything we do in D.C., let's face it, I work in a political environment. Everything you do has political ramifications. So I'm not going to dispute that. Yeah. But what I will say is there are bigger implications than.
So again, folks, it's so bad that even Newsmax is relentlessly calling this out. Guys, this really isn't about country. It's not about oversight obligations. This is about finding as much material as possible to politically hurt the president. Again, they have the transcript. They have the full transcript of the conversation. They have no evidence that it's been substantively edited. And the White House and the Department of Justice were wildly cooperative, certainly compared to Donald Trump when Trump was president, and investigations that Democrats engaged concerning him. Trump famously issued an executive branch-wide order commanding his subordinates to not cooperate with Democratic investigations. In this case, you have President Biden's own Department of Justice appointing a Republican, a special counsel, Robert Hur, to investigate President Biden and his retention of classified documents. And he did it much quicker. That happened much quicker than the Department of Justice appointing special counsel to investigate Donald Trump. So everywhere you turn, President Biden's own Department of Justice has bent over backwards to accommodate Republicans, to be transparent with Republicans. Merrick Garland, FYI, was under no obligation to release anything. After Robert Hur issued his public report, his statement in which he said, listen, I am not going to bring charges against President Biden. I don't think I can make the case beyond all reasonable doubt. There are some innocent explanations which might explain why the documents were there. There's some evidence to indicate that there was no willful retention. There's some that was, and President Biden comes off or could come off to a jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning man with a poor memory. All of these things. It was multivariate for the various reasons that Hur didn't pursue this investigation. He released that full report, which was politically damaging to President Biden. Okay, Hur didn't even need to do that. So Hur bent over backwards to provide Republicans with quite a bit of fodder to use politically. Merrick Garland gave them the damn transcript so that they can do whatever they want with it. But the thing with Republicans is you give them an inch, they take a mile. They demand more and more and more and more and more because it's a transparent fishing expedition. So when Republicans asked for the transcripts, or excuse me, for the audio files, finally, Merrick Garland said, you know what? No, I've been so damn cooperative. I've given you everything. You keep asking for more. There's no legitimate legislative purpose for this. This could have a chilling effect on future DOJ investigations if the person that they're investigating or potential witnesses involved in that investigation know that there's a damn good chance that Congress could get a hold of all the files and release it for political purposes. Okay, so Merrick Garland finally said no, and he advised President Biden to claim executive privilege. So this is an article from The Hill characterizing some of this. The DOJ pushed back against the release of audio recordings of President Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur, also citing concerns that deep fakes could emerge. DOJ argued in a Friday night filing that if the audio were released, it could end up being altered and passed off as an authentic recording, which would be shared widely. The passage of time and advancements in audio, artificial intelligence, and deepfake technologies only amplify concerns about malicious manipulation of audio files. To be sure, other raw material to create a deepfake of President Biden's voice is already available, but release of the audio recordings presents unique risks. If it were public knowledge that the audio recording has been released, it becomes easier for malicious actors to pass off an altered file as the true recording. It would harm substantial privacy interests, okay? And again, it talks about the other things that we talked about, which is that the DOJ is concerned that this would basically make it much harder to pursue investigations against anybody in the future because it would, make people decline or incentivize people to decline to actually cooperate with the DOJ. Now, having established all of that, okay, that again, that their political interests are so cynical here that even Newsmax is calling them out for it, I want to draw your attention to something else from that same conversation. So President Biden has had a lifelong stutter, and it has become increasingly publicized over the past 4 or 5 years. Andy Biggs, a Republican congressman, apparently was unaware of this, and he believes that it's fake news, and seems to suggest that it's actually part of a conspiracy theory to make this fact up in order to help cover for President Biden's gaffes.
There's been no evidence of a stutter until now, almost into his second term in the White House. What do you make of that?
Well, it was news to me. I had never heard that Joe Biden had ever had a stutter. What we're talking about is cognitive ability to communicate, and that's what I was talking about. I didn't mention stutter. Only Mr. Liu mentioned stutter. And that shows you how desperate they are to prevent us from getting hold of the audio.
That's all.
So again, Andy Biggs is like, and even Rob Finnerty there, who did well in the first part of this, but he seems to also be breathing life into the idea that, hey, this stutter really didn't exist. It came out of nowhere, and it's to compensate for what they believe to be cognitive decline in the president. But just a simple Google search, just Google Joe Biden stutter, and one of the first articles to pop up is from 2008, August 23rd, 2008. Joe Biden from stutter to power. Over the past 35 years, Joe Biden has held some of the most powerful positions in the Senate. He started life as a stuttering child in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and then there's a full podcast about it, okay? But the bottom line is President Biden's stutter has been a matter of public record for decades. Now, obviously, as he ascended the ranks of government from senator to vice president to president, the prominence of that stutter, knowledge of that stutter increased because there was more scrutiny on President Biden's past, his communication challenges, et cetera, and so forth. So again, very strange stuff from not just Andy Biggs, but also Rob Finnerty there. So I got to take points away from Rob Finnerty, although to be perfectly candid with you, I never thought I would have to I never thought I'd be under the circumstances to give points to a Newsmax host. So I give him points for actually pointing out to this Republican to his face, like, dude, come on. This is purely a political exercise. Let's just be obvious about it. But now I give it, and I must take it away for him also trying to breathe life into the idea that Joe Biden hasn't had a lifelong stutter. Now, I'll just wrap up with this. Whether we like it or not, the American people, majorities of the American people, have doubts about both President Biden's cognitive faculties and Donald Trump's. I feel like this is so important. I will never let this go, because to the extent that you want to evaluate the candidate's mental faculties, fair enough. It's important to have a mentally fit person occupying the most powerful and important office in the world. But a couple of things I want to remind you. It's not just a majority doubt Biden. Majorities in those same polls doubt Trump. Is it to the same extent? No, but it's there. And the media disproportionately focuses on Biden's gaffes compared to Trump's. Now, they have slowly started to correct that, but there's still just an obnoxious disparity there. And my instinct, and the instinct of people like Don Lemon, who I've interviewed, veteran journalists, is that the media feels the need to create a false balance, that Donald Trump has so many unique qualities to him that make him unfit for office, that make him a bad candidate, that the media feels like, okay, they can't focus as much on his gaffes and they have to play up Biden's in order to create a balance. Hey, we're not biased. We talk about Trump being corrupt and a convicted felon and, a narcissist and all these things. We got to talk about something bad about Biden. So we're going to give as much focus as we give to all this collective bad stuff about Trump. We're going to give as much airtime to this one bad thing associated with Biden. Okay, that to me, and to, again, people like Don Lemon, veteran journalists, that seems to be the reductive calculus of not just right-wing media, mainstream media. Okay? And the other things I'll point out is that there's much more evidence that Biden is competent than Trump. Biden has gotten much more of his agenda accomplished than Trump did of his, right? So both of these men have occupied this office. Who was better at the job? Even if you disagree, even if you despise Biden's agenda, the point of an agenda is to fulfill it, right? So whether set value judgment of Biden's agenda aside, he got more of it done. That's just an objective fact compared to Trump. So he seems to be more competent at leveraging power and getting stuff done and working bipartisanly with razor-thin margins in a hyper-partisan, combative legislature against a highly mobilized opposition party. You also have the fact that, Republicans will talk smack, yes, about President Biden's mental fitness, although some of them have actually praised it in the past. Shelley Moore Capito, Republican Senator, Kevin McCarthy, when he was the Speaker of the House negotiating with President Biden during the debt ceiling. Meanwhile, we have many Republicans, including Republicans who worked with Donald Trump in his cabinet, worked for him directly, who know Donald Trump personally, are saying, no, this guy's an idiot. He is unfit. He's an effing moron. He should be nowhere near the White House. So again, it seems to me, if you really want to scrutinize this, there's much more evidence of Biden's competence than not. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. Republicans are just pulling out all the stops. They will go for everything and anything that they can use to politically injure President Biden. And that is precisely why even Newsmax is like, let's just stop. Let's just stop with the pious excuses. Just come out and admit it. You want to hurt the president politically, and that's really what all this is about. And despite his protests to the contrary, even at the end, Andy Biggs is like, of course we're going to use this politically, because that's exactly what this is. Let me know what you think in the comments.